Hello. My name's Kate, and I like to explain things. And this is Angus. Oh, good thing that I spent, let's see, how long? Yeah, about a minute talking without actually speaking into the microphone. We'll see how well that worked at picking up my voice. I don't think it does, because the reason I use this, even though it picks up the car noises even when I'm inside the building versus, and wind. Also the train is because at least it points, the microphone is pointed in my direction, and so we mostly get my voice. But anyway, that's not what you're here for. Hello, my name's Kate. I like to explain things. Today, I think I've slightly brought you here under false pretenses, because I'm planning on untitling this video something like why I don't go to church anymore, but this is not necessarily the reason why I don't go to church anymore. To be clear, I've been a Christian my whole life. Didn't think that I needed to accept God into my heart, which, if you've come upon this and you aren't Christian, is, yeah. I thought he was just there, because I was told that Jesus loves me. Anyway, did that, went to the heathen college instead of a private Christian school, and so I had to find a church, because there wasn't just a chapel that I could go to. Found churches to go to, but otherwise, I got a master's degree in social psychology in London, went to a Church of England church there that was like literally down the street. It was really nice that we ended up liking that church, but otherwise I have attended the same church that I grew up in and was baptized in, and mainly that has been a great thing, because the church that I attended as a kid didn't force me to choose one thing or another. It was pretty middle of the road, which has helped me, a liberal Christian or a progressive Christian, depending on how you want to see things, maintain my Christianity, because I didn't have a false choice between being a conservative person and being a religious person. That's a false choice. Anyway, there are a myriad and complicated reasons of why I don't go to church at this point in time, and it's not like I'm opposed to it. If something happens, I'll go. It's just I find my religious community elsewhere. In the not explicitly, but definitely is feminist parachurch is something that they call it, spaces that I've helped lead and work and make work. So yeah, I'm gonna read to you the thing I wrote about why some people, and myself, but it's not very personal, don't go to church or don't want to go to church anymore, I think. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna move the... Oh, Angus, you're out of frame. Let's get on. I don't go to church, but earlier this year, after nearly 40 years, my home church's pastor retired, which means that for the first time in my 30 years of life, we've had interim pastors, which has created quite the stir. Suddenly, we can and get to be critical of ways of the sermons and such in ways that we wouldn't otherwise have been, because the dude is leaving. Either in a few weeks or in a few months, but it's interim. It's not going to stick around. And, when I say we, I mean, my mom comes home, tells me about what she heard, as well as our mutual friends' normally negative reactions to it. Mom is not someone who dwells on the negativity in things, so is less likely to search for the creepy churchy messages that at the way our friend and I are. But she's definitely interested in hearing both of our takes, because, they are kind of valid. So now sometimes these takes are harder to develop, and I have spent a fair time of justifying my discomfort or rejection of some of the reported messages. For example, some someone overstated research claims on dreaming, which struck me as, in my non-professional psychological opinion, as annoying. But a conversation in May has particularly stood out for me, and I've talked about it with other people. At the time, I noticed it being kind of important. It happened after my mom got home. She gets home after my dad, who was taking his afternoon nap. I was in the middle of something upstairs, so after saying hello, I didn't want to stop and chat. If not for my task, but for the respect of my dad, I was trying to go upstairs. However, it turns out one of the takeaways of the message that week was, we need to be open to miracles. We need to be performing miracles, because otherwise, what's the point of the church? Immediately, I responded with, to love unconditionally? I mean, come on. The speed that exited my body at the time surprised me. Because really, even for someone like me, who actively tries to avoid Christian religious culture as much as possible, and who has worked to deconstruct, but not in that way, because then again, I would be engaging with Christian religious culture, and I don't like that. I think it's creepy. But I've been able to deconstruct some of the more harmful and oppressive forces that have snuck in. Still, it is hard to argue against some of those insidious forces, because they are seen as traditional. And tradition. And even though tradition has only ever had a 50-year memory, it is always seen as more valid an argument than something new or progressive in the Christian religious tradition, at least that I have been a part of, and I think a fair few others. This, of course, is not a new idea. The idea that unconditional love is fundamental to who Christ was, let alone what Christians should be. A good faith interpretation of that week's sermon would suggest that the pastor would say that miracles and unconditional love are not mutually exclusive. However, that's not what he said. And in my opinion, there's a reason he didn't say it. I recently heard a statistic that I have not fact-checked, but hopefully Editing Kate will, because I think it's probably from a research paper I'm interested in. It's actually from a Washington Post article about why all the contemporary Christian music sounds alike, which I will link below, but the copyright corgis are currently protecting me from being struck by. It reads, the popularity of megachurch worship songs doesn't surprise Leah Payne, professor of American religious history at Portland Seminary in Oregon. Payne, who studies the Christian music business, said it probably reflects broader worship patterns. While most churches in the United States are small, most Christians worship at large churches. The 2020 Faith Communities Today survey found that about 70% of worshipers attend the top 10% of churches. The fact that the worship music of megachurches has a bigger share of the worship market corresponds to the practice of worshipers, said Payne. And also, just, to underline a point I haven't made yet in the video, calling the most popular in numbers churches, like by number of people, the top 10% of churches, is also very telling. And this drives, to be fair, with what I know about population sizes of schools, cities and town, and any number of ways we group ourselves. While most things are, the large majority of something is small, most people participate in the most popular things. The problem is, for me at least, when you're talking about communities the size of my hometown, megachurches the size of my hometown, I don't know how well you can claim that your community is about unconditional love. To be clear, I don't think every member of my about 200 member church congregation feels unconditionally loved by someone out in our church that maybe, isn't a member of their family. But I think it's at least a more attainable goal. The problem, I think, exists in the set of values and even theology that leads to megachurches in the first place. To continue my criticism in good faith, I'm going to have to put aside my own bias that suggests that the reason these churches form is actually because of greed, personal greed at the highest echelons of power for, the ability to tell 1,500 people to, 15,000 people what to do and they'll do it, or let alone the money. But instead, I will use my own metric for success as a Christ follower. Does it bear fruit? And, maybe I will include some Bible passages to explain what that would mean. Undoubtedly, having thousands of congregants and new ones joining every week certainly makes a church appear fruitful. Undoubtedly, certainly, for sure. That will make you look fruitful, especially for evangelicals. To my shame, continue to be one, like myself, because the whole point of being an evangelical is, the word evangelical means like trying to get people to join you, trying to get people on board. So getting more people on board is a particularly good, I think, to a lot of people, metric that you are bearing fruit. But as my sister told me after visiting a mega church when she moved out of state for a while, do they have that many people because they're feeding them spiritual baby food? Is it because they're preaching varying degrees of prosperity doctrine, if not promising wealth, then maybe promising a blessing of another sort? Like a miracle? Oh, there's a baby. Here's a little doggy. Let's see if she'll come onto my lap. Let's see. Yes. Oh, yes. In fairness, I don't think the real problem is spiritual baby food. I think the problem comes from a strict adherence to hierarchical and oppressive doctrines that prevent people from feeling safe enough in church to show their fellow Christians their true selves. And I'm not even really talking about LGBTQ plus Christians, feminists, or others who fall outside the expected white American cultural and racial categories of, prominence, to massively understate that. But obviously that applies directly to them very easily. But plenty of men resent their leader role, and plenty of traditional women simply could not have children and seek relief from the pressure to do so. And can they in all circumstances? To experience unconditional love, you have to feel confident that even though you haven't told this person about an intimate detail of your life, you could. If you needed to, you could tell this person anything, providing that it's socially appropriate, contextually, for, everyone involved, because that's important. But you can't connect to somebody if neither one of you feel like you can show your true self. So, if that's an inherent part or byproduct of your theological position, that some behaviors and beliefs are just not acceptable, and therefore there are people who just aren't acceptable, the church's call to bring unconditional love to the world will go unheeded. And tragically, if that's the reason you go to church, to experience this unconditional love, you simply won't. Okay. That's what I wrote. I think you've seen enough of the doggies' backs. Oh, and they're gonna start barking soon because there's a dog barking across the street. My name's Kate, and I think I've explained something. Like, comment, subscribe. Think deep thoughts about why you go to church. And if you feel like you're somebody who displays unconditional love for the members of your community, and how you can make that known, because there are ways, like becoming an affirming church, affirming of gay people and trans people. Very easy. Anyway, pet a dog. I just wanted you to get better view of our little Angus. Our little Angus pup. He's so pretty. Can't even. Oh. It's a fool's errand. He doesn't know where to look. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. There we can see a little bit of his face. How pretty. Oh, yeah. There's Angus. There's Angus.